My name is Chloe Hart, and at 28, I learned that sometimes the person you trust the most can turn out to be a stranger wearing your favorite memories like a borrowed coat. For 2 decades, Olivia Rose wasn't just my best friend. She was the twin shadow beside me, the girl who knew my middle school crushes, my worst insecurities, my biggest dreams. I thought we would be old women together someday, sipping tea on a porch and laughing about our youth. Instead, she left me standing alone on a stranger's doorstep with a gift in my hands and a lie in my voicemail. Our friendship began back in 2nd grade, when a spilled crayon box forced us to kneel together gathering rogue colors. We argued over which shade of blue was superior, and by the end of the school day we behaved like we had always been a pair. Olivia had the kind of confidence that glowed. Loud, magnetic, impossible to ignore. I was softer, quieter, a watcher more than a talker. Somehow that made us fit perfectly. Most of my childhood played out between our 2 houses, which sat only a bike ride apart. We shared sleepovers, secrets, Halloween costumes, and even the same terrible bangs phase. She held my trembling hands before my first school play. I sat beside her in a hospital waiting room after her grandmother fainted, quizzing her for a history test. We promised we would never drift apart, even when life inevitably changed. That promise held through high school awkwardness, through the heartbreaks of first loves, and even through college when we ended up in different cities. Distance didn't seem to matter then. We texted daily, called nightly, and made weekend trips feel sacred. But some fractures are so thin at first you don't see them. Hairline cracks that look like harmless scratches until the whole thing finally breaks. Looking back, I can see the first crack forming years ago. My 20th birthday was supposed to be special. My parents helped me plan a cozy dinner, and Olivia promised she wouldn't miss it. An hour before the guests arrived, she called, breathless and dramatic, explaining her roommate's ex was causing chaos and she had to stay. I swallowed my disappointment and defended her absence to everyone else. A week later, a photo surfaced online. Olivia at a concert that same night, laughing with friends. No distressed roommate. No crisis. Just different plans. When I confronted her gently, she twisted her story effortlessly. Something about cheering up her roommate later. Something about losing track of time. And because I loved her, I chose to believe the version that hurt less. Then came the next crack. A few years later, on the morning of the biggest work presentation of my life, she had promised to call and cheer me on afterward. But she never did. Not at noon. Not by afternoon. Not until evening, when she sent a casual text claiming she'd been overwhelmed at work. Later I learned she'd taken a spa day. Stung, but I forgave her. I always forgave her. Maybe that was the problem. I was the anchor, steady and predictable. She was the storm. Brilliant, chaotic, always demanding attention. I built excuses around her like protective walls. She let me. Maybe she expected me to. When she got engaged to Liam, a kind man who seemed to adore her, I thought it was a new chapter for us both. When she asked me to be a bridesmaid, her eyes wet with emotion, I didn't hesitate. I had no idea I had just accepted a role in a story where she had already written me out. The gift box she presented, with its silky robe and handwritten card, felt like proof that our friendship still mattered. And I clung to that feeling, unaware of the storm gathering beneath the surface. If only I knew how deeply that robe would eventually symbolize. A costume, a performance, an invitation to a celebration where I was never meant to belong. I thought saying yes made me part of Olivia's inner circle again. But the bridal planning would expose the first unmistakable signs that something was terribly wrong. The weeks following Olivia's bridesmaid proposal felt like stepping back into the warm glow of our old friendship. The group chat, cheerfully named the Bridal Circle, buzzed non-stop. There were 5 of us: Olivia, her assertive, hyper-organized sister Clara, bubbly Jessica from her office, soft-spoken and thoughtful Megan, and me, the loyal long-distance friend trying desperately to keep up. Being 3 hours away made me feel like a satellite orbiting a planet I used to live on. To compensate, I became the most responsive one in the chat, reacting to every message, volunteering for tasks, and offering constant support. I wanted Olivia to feel my presence, even if geography made it invisible. I took a day off work and drove down for the dress shopping appointment. While the others arrived in sweatpants and ponytails, I walked in flustered from my long drive but still determined to be useful. I held up gowns, zipped Olivia into dresses, carried piles of fabric swatches, and offered gentle, honest opinions. When she finally stepped out in the gown she would eventually choose, a simple, elegant silhouette that made her look like a portrait from another era, I felt a tug in my chest. She caught my eye in the mirror and mouthed, "You knew." And for a moment I believed we were still us. As months passed, bridal shower planning began. Olivia, being an event planner, had a pristine vision for everything. Pastel florals, vintage teacups, minimalist banners, and handwritten menus. Clara handled logistics. Jessica did invitations. Megan took games. And I, being the designer of the group, was assigned all printed materials. I threw myself into the project like it was a gift of love. Drafting fonts, trying color palettes, sketching borders. Whenever I sent Olivia an update, she showered me with praise. "These are perfect, Chloe. Honestly, Pinterest could never." I spent hours printing, trimming, and packaging everything neatly, then mailed the box with quiet pride. A week before the shower, Olivia called sounding breathless and excited. "It's happening this Saturday at 2 p.m. I can't wait to see you." Neither could I. I bought a floral dress, did an online order from her registry, an expensive espresso machine she'd been eyeing, and stayed up late wrapping it in silver paper. That night my excitement felt childlike. Familiar. But the morning of the shower, everything shifted. The sun was bright. I felt pretty and hopeful. I drove the long 3 hours singing to a playlist we'd made years earlier. Nostalgia made me giddy. I even rehearsed what I might say when I hugged her. "We're finally celebrating you. It's been too long." But when I arrived on the quiet, tree-lined street she'd given me, confusion settled over me like a shadow. The house was still. No cars. No decorations. No music. No laughter. Just silence. I rang the bell. I knocked. Called her phone. I texted her. Paste. I checked the address again and again. Nothing. The cheerful dress I'd been so proud of suddenly felt silly. The gift felt heavy in my arms. The minutes stretched painfully as the realization pressed into me. I was alone here. Completely alone. After nearly an hour of waiting in humiliation and uncertainty, I carried the gift back to my car, my hands trembling. On the drive home, each mile felt heavier. The playlist that had filled me with joy now mocked me with memories I didn't know how to hold. When Olivia finally called at 10 p.m., her voice sounded perfectly distressed, perfectly apologetic, perfectly rehearsed. A sudden family emergency. A frantic day at the hospital. Dead phone battery. Messages that must not have gone through. I wanted to believe her. I wanted my friend back. So I swallowed my confusion and accepted the lie she handed me like medicine. But something had cracked between us. Something subtle yet undeniable. And that crack would soon become a canyon. Olivia's excuses were smooth enough to calm me for a while. But the weeks after the cancelled shower revealed patterns I could no longer ignore. And someone else was watching them too, and the days after the supposed shower cancellation, I tried to convince myself that Olivia's story made sense. Accidents happen. Emergencies happen. Miscommunication happens. And I had always been the forgiving one, the friend who gave infinite second chances. But something felt off. The way she rushed through her explanation. The oddly detailed story about Liam's grandmother. The too perfect timing of her apologies. It was all neatly packaged, as if she'd rehearsed it. Still I held my tongue. Olivia was stressed, overwhelmed, in wedding mode. That was what I repeated to myself like a mantra. But small things began to leak through the cracks. Over the next few weeks, her messages grew shorter. My calls went unanswered more often. Our conversations, once long and winding, now lasted minutes and consisted mostly of wedding updates. She never mentioned the makeup celebration she'd promised. And each time I gently asked about Liam's grandmother, her answers grew vaguer. "She's okay now." "Oh, it was just a scare." "Anyway, did I tell you about the floral centerpieces?" Avoidance wrapped in cheerfulness. Then came the bachelorette planning weekend, the one I wasn't invited to. I found the photos online by accident. Olivia, Clara, Jessica, and Megan sat at a brunch table, raising peach cocktails toward the camera. Olivia wore a sash that read "Future Mrs." and looked radiant, relaxed, happy. I felt a sting I couldn't hide from myself anymore. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off. It was just a spontaneous thing. "Clara booked it last minute. You live far." I didn't want to bother you. Didn't want to bother me. The phrase clung to me for days like a stain. I tried to shrug it off. I tried to keep being the easy bridesmaid, the one who didn't complain or cause ripples. But inside me, doubt was turning into dread. Something was wrong. Something was being hidden. And I wasn't the only one who knew it. 3 months after the non-existent shower, on a gloomy Tuesday evening, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something in me whispered to answer. "Hello," a tentative voice replied. "Chloe? It's Megan." My stomach tightened. Megan, sweet, quiet, gentle Megan from the bridal party. The one who never raised her voice or pushed for attention. The one whose eyes always seemed to be watching more than participating. "I hope this isn't a bad time," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I need to tell you something." Cold current ran up my spine. "It's about the bridal shower," she whispered. The world seemed to stop around me. Even the rain tapping against my window went silent. My voice barely made it out. "What about it?" Her breath shook. "It didn't get cancelled." A ringing filled my ears. "What?" "The shower happened, Chloe. We were all there." My pen slipped from my hand. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear her. "Liam's grandmother wasn't in the hospital," Megan continued. "She was on a cruise that week. Olivia made everything up. She told us she didn't want you there." I felt something inside me collapse. A structure I'd spent 20 years building suddenly crumbling into dust. "She said you two had grown apart," Megan went on. "She said inviting you would feel fake. She planned to tell you it was cancelled so she wouldn't have to deal with you showing up." My throat tightened painfully. "But I did show up," I whispered. "I stood on the porch. I rang the bell. A broken sound escaped Megan. "I know. We all saw you." The world tilted. "You saw me." She inhaled shakily. "Olivia gave you the wrong time. She told you 2 p.m. but everyone else arrived at noon. You walked up the path right when we were in the middle of a game." My vision blurred. "She told us not to answer," Megan said, her voice breaking. "She turned up the music and acted like you weren't there." It felt like someone had dropped a stone through my chest. Everything I thought I knew about my best friend was a lie. What Megan revealed shattered me. But the confrontation with Olivia would show me a version of her I never knew existed. Or maybe had been there all along. For 2 days after Megan's confession, I moved through life like I was trapped underwater. Everything sounded distant. Everything felt heavy. Every memory of Olivia, every birthday, every late-night talk, every promise, flashed through my mind, suddenly sharp-edged and unfamiliar. I kept replaying Megan's words. "We saw you. We all saw you. She told us not to answer the door." The image haunted me. Olivia turning up the music, laughing with her friends, refusing to acknowledge the girl standing on the porch with a gift she had chosen so carefully. It didn't feel real. Felt cinematic, villainous, surreal. But it was the truth. And I couldn't hold it inside anymore. So on Saturday morning, hands trembling, I finally called Olivia. She answered with that bright, polished tone she always used when she wanted to sound like the perfect bride. "Chloe, I was just texting you. We still need to finalize nail colors for the wedding." Cut her off. "I'm not calling about nails." The cheer in her voice snapped like a twig. "Okay, what's going on?" "I know about the shower," I said quietly. "The truth. Not the story you gave me." Silence. Not the silence of someone confused. Not the silence of someone hurt. The silence of someone caught. When Olivia finally spoke, her voice was no longer warm. It was flat, brittle. "Who told you?" "Megan." Sharp inhale. "She shouldn't have done that." "Not I'm sorry. Not Chloe, let me explain." Just immediate blame shifting. My stomach dropped. "So it's true," I whispered. "You lied. The shower happened. You told everyone not to answer the door when I knocked. You." She exhaled loudly, annoyed. "You're being dramatic." The disbelief hit me like a slap. "Dramatic?" "Yes. Chloe, it wasn't that deep. You're acting like I burned your house down." I pressed my fingers to my forehead. "Olivia, I drove 3 hours because I thought I was celebrating my best friend. I stood outside with a gift. I thought maybe something had happened to you. You let me believe that for months." "You wouldn't understand," she snapped. "Our lives have gone in different directions. You're all career-focused and intense now, and I'm building a life with Liam. Having you there felt forced. So humiliating me was easier." I asked, voice trembling. She gave a short, humorless laugh. "It wasn't humiliation. It was avoidance. I didn't want awkward energy at my shower, okay?" I stared at the floor, a numbness creeping through me. "Why didn't you just talk to me?" "Because you always overreact," she shot back. This right here is exactly why I didn't want you there. You're too sensitive. Everything becomes a big emotional scene with you. I let her words sink in, cold, sharp, cruel. For 20 years I had softened myself, minimized my needs, forgave every slight. And now she was weaponizing it. My voice came out calm, steadier than I felt. I showed up for you every time, Olivia. And you talk about me like I'm a burden. I'm just being honest, she said bluntly. No, I replied. You're being unkind. She exhaled dramatically, like I was the inconvenience. Look, Chloe, I don't have the capacity for this right now. The wedding is 2 months away, and you're dumping all this on me. Dumping this on you? He echoed, stunned. Olivia, you did this. Her voice iced over. If you're going to make this into a giant issue, maybe you shouldn't be in the wedding. There it was, the final reveal. She didn't want reconciliation. She wanted control. I inhaled deeply and said the words that finally freed me. You're right. I shouldn't be in the wedding. I'm stepping down. And after this call, I will not be part of your life anymore. A beat of silence, colder than anything before. Fine, she said flatly. Do what you want. I hung up before she could twist the knife again. Then I blocked her everywhere. And just like that, 20 years of friendship evaporated into a single hollow goodbye. Ending the friendship was supposed to bring closure, but what followed was a storm of fallout, unexpected alliances, and a new beginning I never saw coming. When I ended the call with Olivia, I expected a sense of relief to follow. Something clean, something final. Instead, the hours afterward felt like wading through thick fog. Even though she had hurt me in ways I hadn't imagined possible, 20 years of knowing someone doesn't vanish neatly. It unravels, thread by thread, leaving knots you didn't expect. By the next morning, the news had already reached the rest of the bridal circle. The first to reach out was Clara. Her message was shorter than a grocery list. Heard you dropped out. Olivia is upset. This is not the time to make everything about you. As if cruelty had a genetic echo. I didn't respond. Jessica followed, her tone sweet but soaked in passive aggression. I know Olivia can be a bit much, but she's under so much pressure. Maybe you could have waited to bring this up. Waited. As if months of lies had an expiration date I had missed. Then Megan called. Unlike the others, her voice carried no judgment, only worry and guilt. Are you okay? She asked softly. I exhaled shakily. Not really. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I never wanted to cause more damage. You didn't, I assured her. You told me the truth. Olivia didn't. Megan hesitated, then said something that startled me. You deserved to know. And, you deserved better from all of us. I sat down slowly, trying to absorb the weight of her words. What do you mean? She exhaled shakily. We all saw the way Olivia treated you over the years. The comments she made behind your back. The way she left you out of group things. But she always wrapped it in charm. It was hard to push against her. A bitter heat rose in my chest. So everyone knew. Not the full extent, she said quickly. But enough to feel uncomfortable. Olivia has this way of choosing a target. Making someone the outsider. It used to be Jessica until you came back into the picture. Then suddenly it was you. I pressed my fingers against my temple, overwhelmed. Why didn't anyone say anything? Megan's voice cracked. Because she makes people afraid of being the next target. The truth hit me with nauseating clarity. Olivia wasn't a friend I had lost. She was a dynamic I had escaped. Over the next few days, my inbox filled with messages I didn't expect. 2 bridesmaids quietly unfollowed Olivia on social media. A cousin of hers messaged me privately to say, "Good for you." A coworker who had once met Olivia told me, "I always thought she treated you strangely." Each confession felt like a tiny stitch in a wound I wasn't sure could heal. But healing often begins quietly. I started journaling again. I deleted our old photos, not to erase my past but to release it. I returned the bridesmaid dress with a surprising sense of peace. And slowly, the fog began to lift. 2 weeks later, Megan asked if she could visit me. When she arrived, she hugged me with a sincerity so warm it almost broke me. She brought a small box wrapped in brown paper. "I made this for you," she said. Inside was a handcrafted bracelet. Simple, elegant, made of tiny seed beads in shades of blue and gold. "For strength," she explained softly. "And for letting go." It was the first time in months I felt something close to gratitude instead of grief. As we sipped tea in my living room, Megan admitted something else. Olivia knows you're gone, but she doesn't realize she lost her anchor. She's unraveling. I didn't want that. I didn't wish her pain. But I also couldn't deny the truth Megan was offering. Letting go of someone who mistreated me wasn't cruelty. It was survival. Still, a question lingered in me, quiet but persistent. If Olivia had treated me this way for years, why had I stayed so loyal? Megan answered without me asking. Because you were the real friend. Her words settled deep in my chest, like the first warm light after a long winter. I wasn't broken. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't overreacting. I was finally waking up. And what came next would change everything. Just as I began rebuilding my life, something unexpected happened. Something that would bring closure, clarity, and a revelation about Olivia I never saw coming. A month passed after I stepped out of Olivia's wedding, and out of her life. I thought the distance would sting more, that there would be echoes of longing or guilt. But instead there was a quiet, unfamiliar freedom. I slept better. My chest felt lighter. Even mundane things, washing dishes, reading at night, taking walks, felt calmer now that I wasn't living in the shadow of someone else's expectations. Still, the story didn't quite feel finished. Not until the message arrived. It was a voice note from an unknown number, 35 seconds long. I stared at it for a full minute before pressing play. Hi, Chloe. It's Liam. Froze. Olivia's fiancé. His voice was strained, cracking at the edges. I'm sorry to reach out. I know this is strange. But I felt like you deserved to know what happened. My heart pounded. I pressed the phone closer to my ear. 2 days ago, Olivia called off the wedding. I didn't breathe. He continued, voice trembling. She said things were not aligning, but it wasn't until afterward that I saw the messages. The ones she sent to her friends. About you. About the bridal shower. About everything. Closed my eyes. She described you as clingy, dramatic, jealous. She said she only kept you in the bridal party because you'd make a scene if excluded. She bragged about tricking you with the wrong shower time. She even joked about watching you walk up the path. My fingers curled into my palm. I confronted her. She didn't deny it. She said she had to manage people to avoid drama. Chloe, I had no idea she treated you like that. I'm so sorry. His breath hitched. I don't know who she is anymore. The note ended there. I sat completely still, absorbing every word like a weight being lowered onto me. And then, unexpectedly, lifted. For the first time since everything began, I wasn't confused. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't ashamed. I was validated. Someone who lived beside her every day had finally seen what I had slowly realized. Olivia hadn't changed suddenly. She had been this person all along. I typed a single sentence in response. Thank you for telling me. Please take care of yourself. I didn't owe him more than that. I didn't owe her anything. After that message, life took a strange, gentle turn. Megan became a steady presence. Calling, visiting, checking in. She wasn't replacing Olivia. And she never tried to. She just showed up with quiet consistency, the way a true friend does. One afternoon, we walked through a botanical garden near my apartment. The autumn trees were a blend of amber and ruby, the air crisp enough to sting lightly. At one point, Megan stopped beside a fountain and said, You know, losing someone isn't always a tragedy. Sometimes it's a release. I looked at her, genuinely curious. Do you think I held on for too long? She shook her head. No, I think you held on exactly as long as your heart allowed. And then you chose yourself instead. It was the first time someone said that to me. Chose yourself, and it settled into me as truth. In the weeks that followed, I noticed myself changing in small but meaningful ways. I said no without guilt. I didn't over-explain. I didn't minimize my feelings. I didn't cling to people who made me feel small. I wasn't the shadow beside someone else anymore. I was my own person. One evening, just before winter, I wrote something in my journal that made me pause. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about finally seeing everything clearly, and choosing peace anyway. And that's what I felt, peace. Not the kind that comes from resolution with another person, but the kind you earn from reclaiming yourself. I never heard from Olivia again. But I did hear from life. Louder, kinder, fuller than before. And maybe that's the real ending. Not the loss of a friend, but the beginning of myself. Months later, something unexpected happened. An encounter that brought my past and present face to face one final time, and forced me to decide what kind of person I truly wanted to be.